Detective Comics 1040, Mariko Tamaki, and a returning Dan Mora on the art, on the main story, of course, at least. But yeah, so we knew Bruce was going to turn himself in, and the issue starts with some asshole at the precinct, like, yelling at the police. And Bruce just walks in behind him. I really like this as an intro, actually. I love the set in the scene of just giving us, like, some asshole in the station yelling at the desk sergeant before Bruce just walks in and says, "Hey, I was at that other station before it blew up. I was I was being detained. Maybe you should take me back."
And they're all like, "Did we not let you go?" Like, no, I kind of walked out when it blew up.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This obviously he talks to Oracle a little bit over his comms, and she's like, "Okay, I'll make sure the police get all the evidence they need to, like, acquit Bruce Wayne of anything by the the next day or whatever." And he's like, "Okay, that's good."
Over the weekend, because they throw him in on the Friday night.
That's right.
Like, well, it's going to be Monday by the time anyone looks at anything.
And there's also a cutaway as well to the hospital where the reporter lady and Huntress escaped though out the window. And there's a little editor's note saying, go see what she's up to in the one shot that's out this week, which I kind of appreciated because it made me more excited to read it, because I knew it was Tamaki that was writing that. I was like, oh, it's actually also just directly spinning out, and that's cool. It's a funny little beat where Babs actually knows this nurse, who I don't remember from anything in particular.
No, Jennifer is her name.
But and she's like, shit. But the scene that I wanted to get to here, Joe, this made me think of, maybe you'll agree with me on this. Do you know that episode of Mr. Robot where Darlene's with the drunk Santa?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right. I was getting just that. So Bruce is like sat next to this drunk in the tank, right? The tank being just the general holding cell at a police station. Not a literal tank, just in case you've never heard that phrase. But he's next to this drunk guy, and he's like, "Hey, you're Bruce Wayne, and you're also Batman." And Bruce, of course, doesn't like go, "What? How did you figure that out?" He's like, "Oh, what tells you that?" He plays it as if,
it's a drug guy. It's like, what's the harm?
Right. And he tells this story about how he had this job, and like I really love this as well, actually, the classic comic book colors and art for this flashback where this drunk guy's telling the story.
I laughed as well. Just working in entertainment, very taxing job, and he's working in like a bowling alley or something.
Yeah, and then through the skylight, Batman and Joker, but it's Batman with the blue kill and cape. Joker's looking really old school as well. I love the classic touches in the art for this.
That's a great page.
It's wonderful stuff. And there's like an explosion of the Joker's toxin or whatever, and the guy goes for a run. He has to like jump up the fire escape, and Batman's punching. It's just like old school classic comic booky stuff. All the colors pop. It's really nice. Feels very distinct from the rest of the book, which is cool. But basically, the guy was hiding up in the roof, and Batman had sort of finished the fight and didn't realize he was there. And he says that Batman lifted up his curl to like scratch his eye because there was something in his eye, which just
probably blood. Let's be honest. Yeah.
But because it was something so mundane, like there was something in his eye, it made me think of like that Santa from that Mr. Robot episode, because it was just like such a stupid little moment that might have revealed who he was to some random person that he never knew was there. And I love this idea that this may actually be true. Like, he might have seen this, but like
it's plausible.
But at the same time,
there's a lot of people over the years who have seen something, especially in the early years. But for the good of just being like, yeah, it's Batman. Well, I'm not going to reveal that secret. The idea that some people just know, but it's like, it's fine.
Yeah, and of course, when he sobers up a little bit in the morning when Bruce is about to get out, he says, "Oh, if I said anything weird last night," he sort of
he doesn't even recognize he's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, so I love this idea that this drunk only remembers this when he's drunk, because it's like such a memory that he's buried. It was so traumatic.
Yeah.
But we cut back to the Penguin, who's up to stuff.
That's kind of what he usually does.
Yeah. They're planning something. They're going to burn something down. We don't really know what at this point. Then we get the scene where Bruce leaves. But it's a nice little mean. But it's as Bruce is leaving, we see the explosion elsewhere. And
I'll be honest, I did not recognize in that panel where it was.
Nor did I. For a split second, I thought, is this another police station blowing up that he's in? Because there's a bit of a trend.
That would be very, very coincidental.
I don't mind the uncertainty though, because it's very clear by the end of the issue, because it shows you, without a shadow of a doubt, where it is. So it's not.
It is. I think I would have just enjoyed it slightly more in that moment if I'd understood the context, because I'm like, okay, something's happening, but it didn't. I felt like it should have played more as a moment of understanding, but maybe not.
Now, obviously, it's not going to win like art of the issue here because of the Joker stuff and the flashback, but there's something so simple about Mora's like the two villains meeting each other. Worf and Penguin. There's like the factory or warehouse in the background, and it's just the two panels of them close up. But the shadowing on Worf's face, and then the big cheesy grin on Penguin's face.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and they're working together. They've got a bunch of like goons who have all worked for other villains in the past. There's a couple of dudes in Bane masks. There's a couple in the green and purple.
Who were in the police cell at the start of the issue, right? Oh, not the cell. They were in the precinct though.
Yeah. And basically they're like, hey, we've got an agreement. We're doing stuff. Bruce Wayne will die, but yeah, we have to go after Batman first though. And then we get the full page of so it was Bruce's apartment. It was his new place that's been blown up, so it's just on fire. And there's a gorgeous page actually of him sitting, or standing.
Good job he went
this.
and turned himself in for the weekend, isn't it?
So it's a gorgeous page that, but yeah, they say they're going to go after Batman first because he'll protect people like Bruce Wayne. And then it reveals that they've got Hugh Vile, of course, was the one spreading the parasite. And this monster will be all we need to destroy Batman, so they're going to try and use him. He's in a hospital bed. He's tied down as well. It's worth mentioning. It's not like they're letting him, roam free or anything. He's tied down and he's on like a respirator. And then he refers to like their group that are meeting here as the jury. The jury has spoken, he says. And it's in big, bold, red text to make it clear this is a name.
It's got a logo, which is how you know it's a name. It's a traditional lettering technique in comics at this point. I'm
digging this. Joe, I'm digging about this. I'm digging that Worth isn't just gone. It was like all this setup is still kind of paying off, and it's still using Hugh Vile, but it's using him in a way that's different to like, there's a murder mystery going on in the first arc. This is like, he's going to be a tool for the villains of Gotham to manipulate and utilize to their own ends. Like, this feels like it's sort of spinning back out into just telling stories about the city and the villains in the city. And I kind of like that.
I do as well, yeah.
It's a neat way of spinning out of the story that has already been established at this point.
I think Hugh Vile is possibly still the least interesting element of this run to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited by him being used by the jury, perhaps.
Yeah, been used by, and I think I also like that the villains we're talking about here are the Penguin, who, well, he's got a name like the Penguin. It was always an arms dealer. He was always more into the mob side of things, and Worth as well as he's the crime boss guy. We're not dealing with the big extravagant villains, but the idea that they're going to use this effectively metahuman to their own ends is very interesting. It's like him being a tool for some of our regular villains, more down to earth villains at that, I think is an interesting premise to go forward in.
Yeah, I agree.
And the art in this issue is gorgeous. Like,
it is absolutely. And John, I want to point out the lettering as well. Like throughout is pretty great, but that final touch on the jury, beyond just being the logo, so it's a name of an organization or a character as opposed to just a figure of speech. The way the bubble that it's in is like an explosive bubble, so you can feel Penguin getting animated and kind of like getting excited about saying this as opposed to the sentences before. It's really smart stuff.
Yeah, I think I dig as well that this further separates Detective and Batman in terms of the type of stories they're telling. And what's funny is that they're both kind of about the city at large in some ways, but they're about very different circles within the city. With Batman, it's all about, okay, it's people who are trying to change the city, but this is more the underground, like, wealthy criminals of Gotham trying to take back control and trying to manipulate the city from behind. Whereas Batman's very much more in your face, because it's these big, it's this power play of like the powers that be in control, the magistrate and the mayor and all that. But this is the more, I don't know, underground side of things.
A bit more low key.
Yeah, I just I like the contrast between them, even though they complement each other very well, which is kind of nice. So
yeah,
no.
I think this out of the pair, I think Detectives had the more consistent art and look, even when it hasn't been Dan Mora.
But Bogdanovich was doing a great job in his absence.
Bogdanovich is great. Don't get me wrong. I think Mora's better, but Bogdanovich is still great. But then you've got things like Belair's colors being very distinctive and really, really keeping it consistent issue to issue. And don't get me wrong, the Bat book still looks pretty consistent, but I think there's definitely been issues where you go, okay, this is clearly someone else. It just looks a bit different. Whereas this feels like more of one coherent story.
What are you rating the main story?
I think I'm going to give this an 8.
I'll nudge up. I'll say 8.5 on this. I'm really loving Detective right now. Did you read the backup this week?
I did, because I saw it was Dan Waters, so I went, "Ooh, I'll read that."
I thought you might.
And then by the time I got to the end, I was very glad I did, because this is also something that's going to be continued.
Yeah, it says to be continued in the page of Detective Comics, but I don't know if it means in another backup later or just in the main story. Either way, I'm cool, but
Yep.
But yeah, this is actually a Man-Bat related story, and it does reference both Justice League Dark and the Man-Bat mini that we just got, so it is accounting for all recent continuity and your Man-Bat lore.
This is the most up-to-date recent appearance of Man-Bat in continuity.
Yeah, because this is after the Tower of Fate incident in Justice League Dark, which I don't know about, but presumably you did.
I think that was the issue after I stopped reading.
Oh, is it? Okay, well, Matt knows about it at least.
Yeah.
People know about it.
It happened, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Man-Bat's like flying through the city, causing a little bit of damage, and Batman chases up to him. And basically, I'll describe this as Man-Bat has been infected by the Thing, and he's aware that he's infected by the Thing, and he's trying to fight it. To the point where this monster comes out of him and like tries to fight Batman, and it's this big horrific thing, but Langstrom's able to like kind of like fight it back inside him, and effectively says that this thing gets stronger if people fear it, which is actually very Freddy Krueger. It's like Freddy Krueger meets the Thing.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
And basically the idea is that he can't even tell his wife how he died or why he died, because if people know this thing exists, then they'll fear it, and if they fear it, it'll
come back. It'll
come back, and it'll be stronger, and it'll spread.
There's a lot of trust in Batman not to be afraid of this thing because he's Batman.
Yeah, I dig that. Just as it's a bit, because Batman's so good, but it is like Batman. If one thing about Batman has been consistent, is the idea that he's mastered his fear overall.
That's like the one defining thing, right?
And the idea that Kirk, in death, is able to sort of like say he doesn't fear it anymore either. It's kind of a nice moment for him because he has sort of like had a bit of a redemption.
And that's something that was interesting. Kirk is seemingly dead right now. I did not see that coming.
Obviously, it won't last, but that's okay.
Sure, this is comics, but there was no publicity for Man-Bat's dead. There was nothing that broke on any of the usual sites.
And the fact that it says to be continued in the pages of Detective Comics does obviously indicate like Man-Bat will probably factor into this, the continuation of whatever this is. It could just be his wife and tangential elements, but I figure that this enemy is going to pop up again, and that's interesting because it's very different to it kind of veers back into the Vile stuff in the sense that it's kind of like a horrific like monster side of things.
And I really like the ending of this as well here, to go into the fear stuff where Batman doesn't know whether he should tell Francine what happened. It's like she does deserve to know. Kurt died a hero. He spent the last few years being a hero in Justice League Dark. She deserves to know that. But will she be afraid? Is there a risk in telling her this? How much can he tell her without setting it off?
Yeah, and good little thing.
Interesting.
Good thing in the letter in here is that it establishes very simply when this thing first starts, because it's like an extra personality, and it starts talking to Kirk first of all, and then eventually starts talking through Kirk's mouth. Is that it distinguishes the lettering right away, so that immediately that it's this thing talking and not Kirk.
Yeah, it's a different font, which is really interesting, and it's a very chaotic font in that there will be it'll be mostly lowercase and then just capitals thrown in the middle of words. It'll feel all over the place.
The bubbles as well are also rigid; they're not round.
Yeah, they're still rounded in that they make a round shape overall, but it's made up of not perfectly straight lines, but like I say, lines rather than a circle.
Yeah, they're kind of more like, I don't know, like octagons, roughly.
Yeah,
give or take. So yeah, all this is really solid stuff. I kind of dig the mood as well. You know, it's something for me. It's a really simple trick in comics, but if you start off your story with like a location with pouring rain, and then show me Batman on a rooftop in the pouring rain, you've got me sucked in at least a little bit to start your story.
and the art team here, Max Rayner and Arif Priyanto on art and colors respectively, do a great job of setting this mood. Although that low light, the kind of soft blue hue, although the pouring rain, it just looks great.
Yeah. So yeah, it's solid stuff. I mean, the only thing I'd say about the art that's negative is that it's not as good as the more art in the main story, but that's, that's not fair.
It's a high bar, yeah.
It's a high bar. But no, solid backup. Detective continually having these worthwhile backups. I don't know how they're doing it, but somehow they are.
Yeah, this one's great.
And it feels like
my favorite of the backups so far.
And if this does show up in the main story later, then it's also essential, which is something a lot of the other backups haven't felt.
Yeah. Even if it's only just continued in the next backup, essentially, which it may well be. It may just be a 2 or 3 part backup, which I think we had with the Huntress one. I'm fine with that. It's a great little sub story.
I think the phrasing makes me think it'll be the main story though, because I think with the Huntress one it was like to be continued next month or next issue, whereas this is in the pages of Detective Comics, makes it sound like it's the main story.
I can see that.
And after all, Huntress did kind of dip in and out of the main story as well, alongside her thing. So,
no, that's very true.
So I could see it. What are we giving the backup?
Probably an 8.5.
So yeah, I'll swap. I'll say 8. So we swapped between them, but there you go.